Okay, we've got our first people joining us, and welcome to today's webinar from the UKAA. We'll just wait a few minutes as people join us before we kick off. Good morning again to people joining us for today's webinar. We'll just let more people attend in, and then we'll kick off shortly. Okay, we've got a fair number of people on. We'll just wait for 30 seconds more and then we'll kick off. Okay, good morning and welcome to everybody to today's UKAA webinar on the very hot topic of how you can use PropTech to help you engage with your tenants. With me today is Mike Anderson of Padoq. Mike will explain who he is and what Padoq do, but I'm looking forward to a really interesting conversation with Mike. Do feel free to ask questions. You've got the Q&A button down there, or if you want to communicate with us or rather than asking a question, use the chat button. Just to let you know, we'll be recording today's webinar and it'll be available on the UKAA website in a few days' time. At this point, I will just hand over to Mike to introduce himself and talk about today's topic. So, Mike, over to you.
Thanks, Dave. So, hello everyone. I'm Mike, and I am the CEO of Padoq. I've never done a live webinar before, so I apologise if there's any technical difficulties or picking up on things, but hopefully it goes smoothly. To give you sort of an overview of what I'm going to be talking about today, I'm going to start with 5 minutes or so on sort of my business background and how Padoq as a company was started. I'm then going to move into the stuff we're doing in the property industry, and I'm actually going to give you guys a live demo of Padoq, so the software we're using and how we're deploying it into various places. And then finally, I'm going to show you something we're actually building with the UKAA now, which we're going to be launching to all UKAA members in the coming months. So to start, my background, I was born and raised in Manchester, went to university here, did IT management. I was one of those guys who graduated and had no idea what I wanted to do. So I ended up traveling for 2 years and trying to work out my life. And in doing that, I ended up working on summer camps in America, doing the whole Camp America experience thing, which was a great time, absolutely loved it. And whilst I was at, this is a funny story really, whilst I was at summer camp, my mum used to always send me British chocolate boxes. And whilst I was at camp, I suddenly became really popular when these gift aid packages arrived. Everyone wanted the British chocolate, and I'm not sure if a lot of you have experienced this, but the chocolate in America isn't that good, is what we've typically found. So when I got back, I started my first company, which was a British chocolate subscription box company. So it was called Jolly Goods. And we spent 3 years shipping around 200,000 chocolate bars worldwide to expats, students, just people missing British chocolate all over the world. So that then, after doing that, we sold that company in 2016. And funnily enough, I did what all people do when they sell their first company. I moved back home in with mum and dad, which wasn't the best thing to do, but it was a case of the situation at the time. And this is where the idea of Padoq really started to form. I'd seen my dad, who's very into classic Kawasaki triples motorcycles from the 1970s. He's an avid collector of them. And every night he was talking on one of these old school PHP board forums. So I'm not sure if you've seen them, but they're sort of very old hat technology. And he was talking with about 1,000 other like-minded people about Kawasaki's. And I thought it was a bit strange. I was like, Dad, why don't you use Facebook groups? And he said, well, I don't want to use Facebook groups because I don't agree with the data stuff. And a lot of the guys don't want to be on Facebook. And I said, okay, well, I get that. And there seemed to be a rising tide in the media around people not wanting to use Facebook because of fears around the data. it also led me to look into more community platforms. So I started saying, right, well, how are communities engaging? And primarily, what I realized is they were using lots of different platforms. So they were using Eventbrite for events, SurveyMonkey for surveys, PayPal for payments, you name it, there was a different platform for everything, WhatsApp for chatting. And I'm sure you guys as property managers can probably relate to the fact that there's so many different technologies being used in the community space. So mid-2017, we managed to raise a little investment through sort of friends and family, and we began working on the first version of Padoq, which was a platform for community organisers to more effectively manage their communities. So you would create what we call Padoqs, which are boundaried spaces around topics, hobbies, interests, whatever it might be. And in them, you could share files, you could post photos, videos, you could have votes, surveys, you can collect payments, events. And the idea was you put all this stuff in one centralized place. The twist with it, in comparison to the likes of your Facebook, your Eventbrites, all these sort of shard platforms, was the person who runs the community would be the data controller, and therefore they would be in control of the data. And so we launched that platform after 2 years of hard work through sort of the end of 2016, right through to sort of the end of 2018. And we launched this platform called Padoq to the general public. The platform's actually freely available now. Anyone can use it for running communities. And we find it really works as a solution for lots of people who are getting sick of just, WhatsApp groups pinging away all day, every day. But going through this process, what I'd realized is building a B2C platform was quite a difficult job in terms of then getting it out to market and getting lots of people on it long term. And we were also starting to get demand from companies saying, look, could we get our own branded versions of this? And that's where Padoq, as it is today, is now. And what we essentially are is we're a mobile app development platform where we can quickly repurpose the components we've built of our community platform into apps for companies in a really cost-effective manner and quick to market as well. So typically the app market, if you're going to go and build an app for a traditional app agency, you might be talking £200,000 to £300,000. You're probably talking a 6 to 9 month lead time to get that app to market. And then you've got all these issues that tend to pop up around every 9 to 12 months, I should say, a new version of iOS or Android comes out, and you've got to spend another 10, 20, 30,000 pounds to get all that stuff you built updated. So our model in the app world was slightly different in that we had a central platform we've built, and we could deploy all this functionality in a shape and size to suit you, with stuff that's already built, it's already being maintained, it's already being supported. So one of the first clients we actually picked up, this was mid last year, was a company called Select Property Group, who a lot of you might have known. They have the Vita student brand. What Vita were really keen on was building communities of tenants outside of their buildings. So they had an app in place that was working for the sort of general stuff around issue reporting, but with it, they had the headaches of running their own app development team from both a cost perspective, a maintenance perspective. And what we came in and did is we said, look, we'll take all that headache away from you, and we'll give you a platform that you can do all the stuff you want to do generally. So we built additional functionality into Padoq around issue reporting, inventory management, booking rooms, all the sort of stuff people expect in that property space. But then it was built on top of this community thing. And that community side, we could do it two ways. We can have news feeds where we deliver content just to users, and we can have communities where everyone can talk and chat and post videos, files. And we found that was not only being used for buildings themselves, so that you've got a community around the building where people are, there seems to be a big move in the sort of, especially the build to rent sector right now, whereby people want to run events, they want to chat about stuff. There was also the idea that people could create their own communities off that. So through working the past year, I guess, with Vita, since we launched with them, we've found people pop up things like the dog walking club, the personal trainers club, the five-a-side football group. And what it's done is it's created this real sense of community, not only around the buildings, but also micro communities that spawn off it. And that's all through just having tech that enables people to build those communities. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you, I'm going to demo my screen like one of our generic solutions for the property space. And I'll just talk through how that's then built out of a community thing, but can also tick all these boxes. Someone's just asked, is there a problem with the audio? Can everyone hear me okay? Just to check.
Yes, Mike, I can hear you.
Okay, great, cool. Right, I shall continue as normal then. Right, so now what I'm going to do is share my screen. And what I would say is, if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in. I can, you know, if you see something relevant, I can talk to it. So please feel free to drop questions in during this stage, and I will answer them as they come up. So this is a generic property app. So we use this as a demo to show potential clients, potential customers, and just general people in the industry how our solution works. What I would say with Padoq is it's very much a user-focused solution. So I'm sure a lot of you are aware of the back office solutions that lots of people have in place around, you know, managing a tenancy, managing the actual resolution of issues, so assigning contractors, things like that. We've built Padoq to connect to any system. So we've connected already to the likes of Salesforce. We're currently doing an integration into Arthur, which is a big property management system. And generally, if you're using some sort of back-end system for managing your tenants, there's no reason you couldn't have this layer on top of it to give the users that really smooth experience, which I think there is a sort of demand that the market's going to. And I will start, so once you come into the app, you see a main menu, which will show you all the sort of options. The first and sort of foremost side of Padoq is the community. So within these communities, we've got some example content in here, but I'm sure lots of you have seen things like Facebook groups that a lot of these apartments have. The idea here is it's giving you basically your mini Facebook group, and in there you can share photos, files, discussions, you can plan events, and it just becomes a community feed for that community. You can tailor how you want that community to respond and reply. So you can turn comments on and off if you want posts just to go in. You can also limit the people who can communicate. So if you just want it to be the concierges, the admins who post stuff out and people can't actually create their own topics and discussions, you can do that. And we've built the technology so it's very parameter led, so you can just flick these things on and off. But the idea is within every single property app we build, there is a core community that everyone joins that is linked either to the company or to your building, and we will auto enroll everyone into this community. That's not to say we can't then have a space where we have more communities and allow users to create their own spaces for the dining club, the dog walking club, whatever it might be. But we try to get everyone into a space to start with just to bring about that engagement. And we've recently launched an app for Urban Bubble, which we actually, Michael Howard, who I'm sure a lot of you know, got in touch with me just at the start of the lockdown, and he really wanted a way to communicate with his tenants directly. And so we found, you know, email was often difficult, getting replies. So within 4 weeks, we were able to deploy an app to 5,000 residents for them. And now they were using that for getting out important information around the whole COVID pandemic situation. And their app right now is purely focused on communication. But what we can do with Padoq, and what we do for a lot of our other clients, is we build that out into, and I'll just start from the beginning again, we build that out into a solution that touches many other areas. And I'll just kind of talk through some of the core things we have there. And most property companies we work with want to collect issues. They want to be able to triage the things that residents are complaining about. So one of the core things we built was an issue resolution platform. And what this basically is, and I'll explain how Padoq has been adapted to do this. We built Padoq where you can do votes, you can do surveys. All this is a string of surveys pinned together around issue resolution. So what is the problem? And there's a bunch of pre-selected answers. Then that will go into a sub-menu, so you can select through that. And then we have another survey where you're collecting their information, or we can auto-fill that and then add a photo. And then it submits a ticket. Now, what we've also built is a web-based dashboard where you can see all those tickets coming in. You can add SLAs to them, so you can see how, what we've found with some of our clients is they want a particular time around how long to solve an issue. So anything to do with a water or leak, you've got to solve within 24 hours. If it's a broken photo frame on the wall, something, you know, not as important, there might be an SLA around that of 7 days. And what we can do on the back end is we can tailor all these types of issues that when you go through that initial system and add an SLA against it so that the users can, you know, so that as a management team, you can monitor that in a certain time period. The other side of this is then each issue has a ticket raised against it. And again, just to jump back to that, the top, each issue has a ticket raised against it, and a user can see their progress. They'll get notifications to say, right now, a contract has been assigned to it. The property company can actually put comments on it, things like that. And you can really start to build that relationship directly with the tenant in that case. And other things we can do, we can connect to your payment services. So this is really just most of the companies we work with already have an existing system in place for managing payments. They're using something integrated into Salesforce or something like that. And we can just display that data in here. So you can see, you know, you get a visualization of the information, which is always useful for the tenants. We can view documents. So we have 2 sides to the documents in Padoq. We can store group documents for everyone to access. So this might be a health and safety policy, a resident manual, things like that. And we can also build documents that are assigned to an individual. So this might be your tenancy contract, things like that. And we just put these in a clear space where the resident can always access them. And again, just to talk through how that's come from Padoq, in Padoq, we had the functionality, the core app we built, we had the functionality to share documents, and we've now just adapted that into its own space that you can easily access them. We've also got room bookings, and to be fair, this is just a booking system. So the way the booking system is built, you can book against rooms, you can book appointments, you can book anything really, and you can just set up areas to book stuff. So provided you have the logistics in place, maybe you could have a cleaning service that you could in theory book through this, because you would just have availability to the cleaner. We could then hook up payments to it as well. And effectively I would tap the gym and I can see what availability is, who's booked. I can set the opening hours, things like that against a date or time. And you basically have a booking engine that people can use. So I'll just go through there. We're actually building this functionality at the moment, which is to have QR code confirmation and tickets. And that's for more sort of complex events where we're wanting to do check-in, check-out, which again, there seems to be a demand in that sort of community space for people. And the sort of final feature of this, the sort of out-the-box stuff, is your events. And that just shows, again, on a building-by-building basis or a sort of company basis, we can set up a number of events. People can sign up to attend them. You can add payments to that if you wanted to collect tickets. And we found this with particularly the likes of Urban Bubble throughout the pandemic. They've been using it for planning, you know, the online fitness classes through Zoom. So they just stick a link in everyone's calendar. And similar to how the UKAA is now, they're getting people together in an online environment to do an activity. And we found that's really had a lot of usage. And so that's our core app in property. Now, what I'm going to show you after this is I'm just going to show you our app that we're building for the UKAA. And you'll see how as Padoq, we sort of reuse a lot of these components and features, but we can do it into multiple industries. So right now we're working in retail with a lot of clients, we're working in sports. And one of the other things we're working a lot with is membership organizations. And so myself and Dave have been working probably the last month on pulling together this concept of the app for the UKAA to really start to build a community around, you know, discussions and what everyone's doing. And I will show you guys that now as well, just to give you a view of it. So this is the mock-up for the UKAA app, which we're hoping to have ready by August time. And so again, you can see there's a real quick lead time to getting these things to market. And we start with a news feed, which is just where you can get news from the UKAA directly to yourself. You can also access all the other members and start one-to-one chats with them. And this is just taking our existing sort of one-to-one messenger functionality. We will also have a community there for UKAA members, which similar to the news feed, but will allow all members to post topics, conversations, and it'll obviously be up to the UKAA to decide the rules around this, around who can post and how they can post, but it will effectively, we can set that up to be, an open community for sharing information in the property industry, asking advice, asking topics. One of our clients is actually a company called UK IT Leaders, and it's a collection of about 500 CTOs, CIOs, and people in the sort of tech business. And I've signed up to this on my phone because I'm sort of in that tech world, and it buzzes all day, every day with just people having long conversations. But what they found is they were previously using a WhatsApp group, and it was very disorganized, because I'm sure lots of you are in WhatsApp groups. And if you're in a really active WhatsApp group with 20, 30 people, you leave your phone alone for 4 hours and you can have 125 messages. It's just not easy to absorb that content. Whereas with Padoq, each of these posts has a structure. So you can see there's a post here at the top, there's another post about something else. So they could be conversations, discussions, and similar to like a forum, which lots of you will use, you can go into that post and there'll be a comment string and you can tag people, and it effectively more organizes those conversations into those different topics. So that's what we're really looking for. Elsewhere in the UKAA app, we will have events, so you can see all the events that are up and coming. We've just got some dummy ones in there for now. You can view documents, so there's a number of documents relevant to the UKAA that will come up. And you can view groups. So the groups, I mean, this is something we may launch in the near future, but you'll be able to demo the different groups, things like that. And then it's effectively just a way to pull all that organization around. And we will also have the ability to sign up members as well. So you'll be able to jump into your membership sign up for new people who are joining. And when they download the app, so you can tell them about it, they might be able to get news about the UKAA, but to join the community, that's when your membership will come into play. And so hopefully that's a good overview of the stuff we're building. And I think what the intention that I've run through with Dave is really to start building more of a community using this element of community tech. And hopefully you can see how we apply that in the property industry, but also in more membership focused communities. So yeah, that's most of the stuff I kind of wanted to run through top level today. And does anyone have any questions about the technology? Does anyone have any questions about the business, story, anything really? And I'd be more than happy to answer.
Mike, can I start off with a question? You use the word community. How do you know whether you have a successful community? And how do you measure that, and what do you define it as?
And I think one of the key things is engagement. So what we're able to do is track engagement on a sort of post by post basis. So how many people in a week have commented on something, viewed a post, joined something, posted something. And what we do is we pull that out for all our clients on a week by week basis. And to show that a community is engaging, you just want to see those things rising. So you want to see people always a view that there's more stuff happening, that there's more people posting, there's more people commenting on stuff, and generally just that engagement is going up. And so I'd say the statistics lead it. One thing that's always key, I think, in building a community is having some content, something interesting for them to go into, and a reason for them to be there. So in the property world, we found a lot of the apps are useful because they go into the app primarily because they want to report an issue or they want to book a room, but then they stay there because of the communities and the relationships they build in there. And particularly, I'll reiterate again, particularly like the build to rent sector. I live in a build to rent apartment myself, so I live in the Slate Yard, which a lot of you will be aware of if you're aware of the sort of northern build to rent places. And there is such an element of community around that. There's events every day, every week or so. There is, you speak to the concierges on a regular basis. There's people doing runs, things like that. And I'm seeing that happen now in the likes of Vita, whereby they're just creating these communities and seeing that that happen. The other thing we've seen happen with Vita is the creation of alumni communities. So they're obviously in the student property place. So you come in, you might live in the apartment for 2 years and then you go. But what we've been doing is all the people who graduated this year, we've actually built a Vita alumni society. And Vita work a lot with local brands. So they have offers, discounts, things like this that they want to pass on to members. And we want to pass those offers on to alumni as well. So even when you've left the apartment, you still feel part of that community. And obviously as a business, there's opportunities for them to then monetize the relationships they might have with them.
Okay, no, that's interesting. I mean, of course, some of our attendees will be already using apps, and other people are building apps for talking to residents. Do you have any tips for them and for us about how you recruit people to use the app? One of the things I'm very conscious of is that in my experience, launching an app or launching something to get people working with you can be pretty hard work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the key thing is there's got to be a hook. There's got to be a reason for them to join. And that can be spawned through, you know, a lot of people we work with, we find it's things like competitions just to get them in there. And then having sort of an administrator, someone who's going to put content in there, create discussions, create content. And I'll give you some examples we've seen with some of our clients through the lockdown. Just the people on site, the concierges going, we're going to award a £10 Amazon voucher to whoever cooks the best looking meal. And everyone starts sharing the photos of all the meals that they've been cooking that weekend. And then they do a vote between everyone who's you know, you can easily turn all those submissions using Padoq into a vote. And then you just see this natural engagement. And then people are having conversations off the back of that, you know, can I get that recipe? Can I do this? And I would definitely say there's an impetus on the brands, the businesses top level to create that initial conversation. But then if you do get good content in there, you're going to see it spawn into more topics. And we also find that there's often these sort of social leaders in the group who will post a lot more than other people, but they tend to drive more conversation. And you can even start to formalize that. You know, you can recruit admins from within the buildings to be people who can help self-police the communities, who can drive them forward themselves.
Mike, I mean, one of the things that I look at the UKAA app and I see it's great to have all the members on there, have all the people on this call and everybody else in the organizations on there. How do we control privacy in that case? How do we stop me or you spamming everybody and saying, you know, buy this, buy that?
Mm-hmm. So we've built all these parameters into Padoq around, you can, as the administrators, the people who own the app, you can set who you want to be able to post. So if you just want admins, or if you just want members, or if you want both, or however you want to do that. We also, the admins themselves have almost a God mode that sits over it, where if someone did spam, they could post something, you know, they can just immediately delete that post. What we tend to find is most groups will, similar to how you'll see in an old school forum, the PHP boards, I was talking about my dad's Kawasaki ones, you will see that there is a set of community rules, and that, you know, they are in place to sort of police the community. And they will include things like no spamming, no job recruitment, there's certain things that are off limit. And you might find at the start someone posts it and they're told, no, you can't do that, or they're removed from the group, however strict you want to be. And what I found in the really sort of lively communities we have on the platform, they are to the large extent self-policed, because everyone in there is interested in having a more functional, open community where people are sharing valuable stuff. And if someone comes in just trying to sell, they immediately get sort of caught and taken out. The other thing we can do is we have an automated moderation service, so we can set up it to track things like swear words, but also if you wanted to track other things, you know, this is completely customizable, this moderation engine, and it can automatically kill those posts before they're posted. So if someone had a swear word and tried to post it, it would just reject it at the point they press post and just say, sorry, you can't, that doesn't go into the community. And one of the funnest jobs about, not the funnest, but it was an interesting one in the office, was when we first launched the platform, creating that long list of swear words that we'd put on the an initial overview that would be killed for the app. So,
okay, sounds good. I'm not sure a long list of swear words sounds good, but I just understand what we're trying to say. Right, I mean, we're coming on to almost 10:30, and I guess it's really throwing it open to our audience. Are there any questions that you would like to ask Mike, ask me? Any observations on the app, and or any recommendations, any thoughts on what we should be doing in the UKAA in terms of trying to create a community? I'll leave those thoughts with you. If there aren't, then Mike, perhaps I can just come back to you and wait for you to give us some Q&As or chats. Mike.
Hand up here. Nikki,
Okay.
should I allow Nikki to
Yeah,
talk?
yeah, by all means.
There we go. Nikki, I think we can hear you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi, Mike. I thought that was really, really interesting, and I think it's fantastic how we are sort of moving forward into this new world of sort of supercharging our comms within community living. I think it's great. Makes me think that, God, when I was at university, if we had this kind of thing, it would have made it even more fun. I guess my question, I was just wondering whether, have you noticed in the last sort of 3 months a greater appetite for this kind of method of communication? Has it sort of created more creative juices when it comes to thinking about how engagement works in build to rent? Have you sort of noticed a change, or has it just been a gradual appetite anyway?
Yeah, I think at the start there was a big sort of swell of emergencies, people being like, I need to talk to my tenants, I need to be able to get in touch with them. And the first couple of weeks were some of the busiest, to be honest, as we went into lockdown that we've ever had. Since then, I think it has prompted a lot more awareness in these buildings that people want to do the community stuff. And we've been pushing the community message for the last 2.5 years, and it always resonated with people. But a lot of the time you found there might not be a budget, or there wasn't an imperative for people to make action. And I've certainly found that in the last 3 months, especially with everything happening with COVID, it's been one of the things that's top of the agenda when we're speaking to people. So it's, for our business, it has prompted a lot of new business. It's prompted a lot of really interesting discussions. And that's not just in the property space, that is in membership organisations, in sports, all these sort of areas where we're just finding we can reapply this. And I guess our positive point here is we're built to work remotely, so that's worked really well for us in terms of deploying these things, and we can get these things to market very quickly, the sort of out the box functionality. And what I have also found though is there's a lot of companies we speak to, and they don't just want the out the box functionality, they want a lot more, and that can lead to more complex things for us, but it's only advancing our platform, particularly into the property space.
Interesting, thank you.
Mute myself. All right, Mike, I think we're probably coming to an end, but can I just ask before you go, what do you see as the next steps for these sorts of apps? Where do you see the engagement apps going in the future?
Mm-hmm. So I think us as a business, we're trying to move more, we're trying to make it easier and quicker for companies to launch these things. There is quite a complex process in setting up your own branded app, just through getting your own app store accounts, things like that. But our eventual dream long term is to turn Padoq into a self-serve model, whereby you can be a property company and you can log onto our website, go, I want to create an app, you plug in your logo, you plug in your branding, you go, I want that feature, that feature, that feature, you click launch, and 4 or 5 days later, you've got your apps live on the App Store. We're not quite there yet, but I think there's this demand for people to get these things quicker, cheaper, and it just become a commodity that people expect, community. And I've certainly seen the benefits, and I think definitely the sort of rental market coming through right now, there is this demand for, they want to be able to speak to their neighbours, they want to communicate, that people want that more. I think it's maybe more of an American style of living, like a lot of the, obviously I'd spent a bit of time in America, sort of the early 2010s, and I noticed immediately then there was always, anyone who lived in an apartment, it was like there was a social side to that, and it seems like America's been 5 to 10 years ahead of the UK on that perspective. But now, particularly with all this build to rent, that sort of community style living is becoming the standard. And I think even a lot of the old inventory, a lot of the old stock on the market in the UK is trying to sort of say, right, well, can we add an element of that to our stuff? Even if we don't have a gym or a pool or whatever it might be, can we at least foster a sense of community through, having a barbecue in the outdoor area, or starting a runners group or whatever it might be? So I think it's right across the board. I think it's an expectation, and I think it's a differentiator as a tenant. I've personally found that appeals to you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. That's great. So just finally, do we have any more questions from our audience or our panelists for our audience? And if we don't, then I'll just say thank you to everybody. Candice, apologies for putting you on the panel. I didn't intend to do that. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Our next webinar is next week, but in the meantime, for those of you who are members, we've got a couple of forums. We've got a Borrowers and Lenders Forum this afternoon, which is looking at the banking perspective on the build-to-rent crisis and opportunities as it's still fundable. And then I think later this week, tomorrow, we've got a Senior Leaders Forum, for those of you which will be looking at significant trends in the industry. But at this point, I'd just like to say thank you to Mike for a really interesting presentation. Thank you to everybody for attending. And I look forward to launching our app as Mike says, in a couple of months' time, and to being able to engage with all of you on a much more dynamic basis than we are at the moment. If anyone's got any observations about what the UKAA app should have or what it shouldn't have, then please let me know and we'll pick those up. In the meantime, then, again, thank you, Mike. Thank you, everybody. Reminder that the webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be available on our website in a couple of days' time. Thanks again, and look forward to talking to you, everybody, soon. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.